two shows in one day for yours truly. But here we are. Nate and I wanted to get back together, hop on a YouTube live because it's been about a couple weeks. Nate yelled at me. He was like, Leo, what the hell, man? You keep rescheduling on me and rescheduling on me and rescheduling on me. Let's talk some 49ers football. So here we are. Nate, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. It's June. What we're sitting at about 2 more months left until we get some real football going on, or we get some sort of,
against other teams.
Against other teams. There's football going on right now, but I'm saying we're almost there. It's getting there slowly but surely, and it's just going to be a really long June and July to get through the There's not really a whole lot of stories that are happening besides the Julio Jones thing, so. Hopefully that gets resolved here soon, and we can talk about that and why that happened or it didn't happen.
Right. And I would also like to say is I did stream this on Periscope, so it's on the Twitter. I would highly recommend bouncing over to YouTube, not for channel reasons. I'm saying for your own reasoning. Periscope, especially if you're not on Wi-Fi, it's just going to buffer you to where Nate and I are essentially unwatchable, for one. Two, if you're on YouTube, you could actually pause us and then do whatever the hell you have to do, come back, press play, and still join the live conversation in the chat. So definitely go to YouTube, 49ers Goldmine. That's all you have to plug in, and that's where Nate and I will be, as well as visit 49ersgoldmine.com. Bunch of content, more than usual, is coming out right now. People are ramping up the writing, as well as visit Niners Nation Podcast Network on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And that's where Nate and I, our weekly shows on. And we finally have a logo for that weekly show, which I've been dying for. But let's get into it. You saw the title of this show, Nate. I because I asked you if you saw it. It's, I love this guy. 49er legend, former third-round pick out of the University of Miami, Frank Gore. His rumblings are starting to ramp up once again to where I'm seeing bring Frank home. I think he had a quote that basically went viral saying, if they call me, I'll be ready. So where are you on this? Obviously Jeff Wilson Jr. got hurt. He's going to miss somewhere between 6 months or so. Should the 49ers bring back Frank Gore?
Oh, man. This is where most of 49ers Twitter hates me. No, because I just don't think that he fits what they do. And I don't think he makes this team come, September. And I would rather him come in when we know his career is over and he's retiring, and they bring him in to do what they did with Navarro Bowman, basically. I just don't see a way where Frank Gore would make this team, because he's not better than Wayne Gallman. And obviously I don't know if he's better than Trey Sermon, but he's not better than Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, and when you say that, you're talking about this very state, this version of Frank Gore. You're talking about 2021 Frank Gore. Okay, I just don't want anyone to get confused. You're talking about 2021 Frank Gore.
Hates me already, so it's all good. But yeah, so that's my thing is this Frank Gore is not going to make this team. Love the guy. Appreciate what he did. When he beat the Seahawks the year that they played them in the NFC Championship at home at Candlestick, it was epic. Like that final run where they just destroyed the Legion of Boom and won that game was so cool. But this Frank Gore will not make this team. They're just too stacked at the running back position. We did a show 2 weeks ago on the Niners Nation Network where we talked about, what are some of the position groups that are just the best. And running back was one of the best. And that's the thing is, I love Frank Gore. I think he's good. I don't think he's good enough to make the team, nor is he good enough to make an impact on this team where they would sign him. And I think that them cutting him would hurt more than him coming in. And they're going to cut him. That's the thing. It's he's not going to make the roster in September. And I just don't want to cut him and have that bad will, because I'd rather have him come in, do the Navarro Bowman thing, and retire with the team, as opposed to come in, try and make the team and get cut, and then it kind of leaves a sour taste when he wants to come back and do the 1-day thing and retire like Bowman did.
Okay.
Yeah, someone in the comments
Ding,
already
ding, 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 ding. Us having to cut Frank Gore would be much worse than not signing him at all. And I completely agree with that. So with Frank Gore, I don't think it's necessarily a scheme fit thing because Frank Gore does have wonderful vision. Is he going to have much burst throughout, once he sees the hole? Not so much anymore. He is probably my favorite 49er of all time because as a kid, I grew up a Miami Hurricane fan. They were very, very electric, in the year 2000, 2001. And Frank Gore came from the University of Miami, from that loaded backfield. And then I remember as a kid, preseason game in San Diego, Frank Gore's rookie year, I was like, hey, Frank. I was chanting his name, Frank, 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 Frank. He turned around and he actually heard the little Leo that I was then and was like, I'll be over there. I'll be over there after the game. It's a professional athlete. I didn't freaking believe him. As soon as that clock hit triple zeros, first thing Frank Gore did as a rookie, didn't he didn't go run to the middle of the field, shake the Chargers' hands. No, he ran straight to me, signed my jersey, signed my hat, and then took care of the other fans that were there. So when it comes to Frank Gore, it's someone that I have, love for, someone that I have emotionally tied to. But whether he's on this team or, I just don't see the fit of him being on this team. And that's myself saying that as literally the number one Frank Gore stan. I would love for him to be back. I just don't see what he can contribute, essentially. Someone who, like myself, I'll make it this comparison to where I was a Mavericks fan, or still am. And the last years of Dirk, I was just like, man, can this guy just retire? Because I don't want the memories of Dirk being this version of him compared to the one that I saw going to the All-Star game, beating the LeBron James and the Miami Heat in the finals. I want to remember that guy. So can this guy retire? And that's my concern with Frank Gore is, does he come back to the 49ers and then he's not playing that well because he doesn't have that same juice, that same spark to hit the hole like he had, during his run with the team. Last thing I want to see is just any 49ers bashing this man because he's a legend. His number is going to be retired on this team. I know that because that's what I've been told by a player on the 49ers. They were denied of wearing number 21 past season in 2020 because obviously, it seemed like every number was taken. Practice squads were a lot higher, and so there was a tons of numbers taken. Number 21 was the only one that was not taken. That's unretired because it's going to be retired. They're just waiting for Frank Gore to finally announce it. Once he finally announces, his jersey is retired in the 49ers. The guy's a legacy. And for him to come back and just, and he's not going to be the same effective runner that he once was. And you know what? It's okay. It's sometimes it's okay to just let these professional athletes retire and remember them from those golden days where Frank Gore was rushing for 1,500 yards, 1,600 yards, basically in baseball terms, hitting a walk-off against the Seattle Seahawks, which was the last time they beat them in a long time before Nick Mullins came onto the scene and beat them in Santa Clara. So that's what I want to hold on to with Frank Gore. I don't want to hold on to the 2021 version of him to where he's averaging 3.2 yards a carry and stuff like that, to where now we have to analyze why he's even touching the ball. I don't even want to go there with him.
Yeah, it's just he's such a legend and he's such an important piece of this team's history, like whether or not he won the Super Bowl against Baltimore or not. It's hard for you to see a guy like that, really just not be good enough. I think that, even, with Navarro Bowman, it was so sad what happened with him. Like, because he was so good and then the injuries just took a hold of him and they had to let him go. And, he goes to the Raiders and, started to see towards the end of Navarro Bowman's career that he was done. And it was a cool thing when he came back and he signed with the 49ers. You had all those videos by the 49ers media who, by the way, I just want to say do a killer job of just keeping you, up to date with what's going on with this football team and like what, what the stuff that's going on like that. And that video of him, Navarro Bowman, like breaking down the huddle and all that stuff. That kind of thing for Frank Gore would be so cool because I think he's important to this team like Bowman was. He was part of those teams that went to the Super Bowl. He was part of all this stuff that happened for this team and, resulting him, his career being, basically turned to a training camp where he gets cut at the end by Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. I just don't like it. And that's why, I think he thinks he can, come out here and compete and make it the team. But like, let's be honest here and be realistic. He's not going to make the team. Even with the Jeff Wilson injury.
A lot of it is I just don't think they sign him. To, like, my honest opinion, I just don't think it happens. So, the great part about that is we don't have to live in a reality to where 49er fans are upset about performance by Frank Gore because that guy's a 49er. It's like being upset about a performance of Jerry Rice if he signed today. It's like, guys, stop. Like, this guy is a legend to the franchise and his number is going to be retired very, very soon. To move on to the next topic, and before we talk about it, is once again, if you're on Periscope, go ahead and hop onto YouTube. It's a much more seamless stream to where Nate and I aren't buffering every 2 seconds. And you could pause us, go do whatever the hell you want, jump right back into the live chat. So if you're on Periscope, go ahead and hop on YouTube. Just type in 49ers Gold Mine. Make sure you subscribe when you do so. The next topic here is Julio Jones' move has silenced down a bit. Mm-hmm. And I say that because I'm not seeing a Julio Jones Photoshop every 10 seconds. Seems like last week I was seeing a Julio Jones Photoshop every 10 seconds. A lot of it actually came from you, Nate. So I blame you on that reasoning of me having to just see that way, way, way too much. And I think a lot of it has silenced down because it was more of a fan pipe dream of wanting Julio Jones. I'm not going to say it's off the table. I will never say anything's off the table because that's how this business works. But as we sit here today, I don't think it happens. And ride me 10, thanks, Hobby. But it's just, but it's slowed down a bit, and I think a lot of that has slowed down a bit because we got past June 1st. A lot of people thought he was, as soon as it hit midnight, June 1st, a lot of people were just like, Julio Jones is gone. He's getting traded. Well, it's June 3rd. Julio Jones is still Atlanta Falcon. I think that move is probably, it feels more like a Bill Belichick move than a Kyle Shanahan move. I could be wrong when saying that, but I that's my prediction, is that he ends up becoming a Patriot, surround Cam Newton with as much talent as possible. Bill Belichick is pissed, didn't make the playoffs last year. Tom Brady went and won a Super Bowl, and guess who he plays this year? Tom freaking Brady. So I it smells more like a Bill Belichick move than a Kyle Shanahan move because the Patriots are a little more desperate than what the 49ers are currently. What concerns me from not making this move is what the hell is after Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. I think that's why a lot of us also jump onto this. Let's do this Julio Jones trade. Let's do it. But then you also got to understand from a business strategy, if you give up that second round pick, that means you're not selecting until round 3 on a team that has a shit ton of free agents. Excuse my language, YouTube. I apologize. But they just have a crazy amount of free agents. The same amount that they had this past season, they're going to have it again. And a lot of players re-signed for those 1-year deals because, hey, no one was really going to get paid the big bank unless you were a sure thing as a free agent. A lot of those middle tier guys aren't like Jaquaski Tart, Jason Brett. He had his injury concerns. Those guys weren't going to break the bank. Come back for 1 year for a system that you had success and you have familiarity to. And so a lot of those guys are gone after this season. Well, at least up for debate. So do they really want to spend that second round pick on basically a wide receiver 3 is a luxury item in this offense. Because you also have Kyle Juszczyk that you run out of there frequently. If you're having 3 wide receivers, Kyle Juszczyk is not on the field. You just re-sign Kyle Juszczyk. So it has its scheme kind of where it bump heads with that as well. Where are you at? I know you're a big believer that it happens, and because you jumped on the train since day one, and you're still on the train, you haven't jumped off. I kind of like stepped my foot on, and then I rolled off the train real fast, and then now I'm a little nervous to jump back onto the train. But I just don't see it happening right now.
My biggest thing was I kind of used it as a crutch in a way to like not talk about Jimmy and Trey for like a little while. That was the first thing, that's how I started it. And then I really started looking into it and like thinking about it more logically and more in depth, I guess. And it made sense to me because, if it costs a second this year and a third next year, which is what I've talked to someone who's in the chat right now about it specifically, I think that you're not going to get a better second round pick wide receiver than Julio Jones. I just don't see one that's better than him. And then I understand like you don't want to lose a third round pick, but you kind of have the luxury of trading third round picks because the third round picks you got from the whole Salah thing, I mean, it's kind of, they're free picks basically. And so if you're only trading a third and you're only losing a second like you did when you did Sanders you only got for a year for a second. Julio, you're probably going to get for 2 or 3 years before, he's done. And I just think that whether the quarterback is Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance, Julio Jones helps them be better. And so, yeah, you lose the 1 second pick they have. But I mean, and you're not picking to the third. I understand that. But like this team's aspirations should be Super Bowl for the next 5 years because Trey Lance is the quarterback. Like that's the thing is you're now in a 5-year window. And me and you've talked about this before, Leo. Like this is a 5-year window where you have to win the Super Bowl. Like if you don't win the Super Bowl in the next 5 years, that's when I'm going to get kind of, a little frustrated with this whole thing because, the promise we got with trading 3 first-round picks, technically 2, for a quarterback is that we're going to have a 5-year window where we can pay anybody we want and create the football team that should be able to go to the Super Bowl and get over that hump that we haven't gotten over since 1994. And if Julio Jones is that thing that does that, sure. But I think it's like what Javi said in the chat. I think that the 49ers need to take a real risk-based analysis on this Julio thing. And it seems like they have put out an offer. The Titans have an offer. The Titans probably have the ability to put up more, but I don't think anybody's giving a first-round pickup for Julio. So if the comp is a second this year and a third next year, then I just don't see a reason not to do it personally, besides the fact that, yes, you're going to have less picks, but you can always get picks back later on and, trading guys and whatnot. I don't know. It's just, I don't know, man. This is what I really want because if I'm going to have to, if Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the quarterback, I would rather give him the best, wide receiver options possible for them to make a run because it seems like if you ask 49ers Twitter, they seem to believe that, Jimmy Garoppolo gives them the best chance to win a Super Bowl. Well, Julio Jones gives you an even better chance to win the Super Bowl. So if that's what you believe, then why aren't you putting everything you can to help Jimmy Garoppolo? And so
this is the thing. Does a Julio Jones help Jimmy Garoppolo though? Like Julio Jones, it may sound like a dumbass question. I'll acknowledge that myself. But Julio Jones is a downfield threat. Jimmy Garoppolo is not a downfield threat passer. And like
Yeah.
Brandon Ayuk had his best games without a Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback, and a lot of that came with yards after the catch as well. It's like Julio Jones is going to be limited to running a freaking post route and a dig route, and he can't. And you're giving all that up and paying Julio Jones that contract just for Julio Jones to not run his route tree, a limited route tree. So, but also I also
the future is Trey Lance. We know that.
But if you make this trade, I don't think you could afford Jimmy Garoppolo and Julio Jones on the same team.
That's the thing is the biggest thing, Leo, is that Trey Lance is the future of this team. Credit, run from it. It's coming. Like, whether you're a Jimmy stan, you're not a Jimmy stan, like, we all know Trey Lance is the future of the San Francisco 49ers, no matter what. Like, nothing's changing that. And so if Kyle believes that Trey Lance is going to start this season, he'll go out and get Julio Jones for Trey Lance, not for Jimmy Garoppolo. But, if they have to start...
I'd like to imagine that. I would like to imagine that.
Ideally, right? Like, but the thing is the guy
you go get for Jimmy Garoppolo is Danny Amendola right now. It's Golden Tate right now.
We're not building a team for
It's go make a trade for Jamison Crowder. Those are the guys you get for Jimmy Garoppolo.
We're not building a team for Jimmy Garoppolo anymore. I think that's the thing that the media and Twitter and the 49er fans need to realize. Like, he's not going to be around much longer. It's like that video of Magic Johnson was like, I'm not going to be here, because he's not going to be here next year. Whether or not he's your favorite quarterback or not, like, I'm glad you love the guy. I'm glad you love.
I ride 10. I ride 10.
Hashtag ride me 10. Hashtag ride me 5. Whatever. I don't care. My biggest thing is, and I hate having this conversation because everything comes back to this. And I've done this a million times now, where we talk about something and it comes back to this quarterback position. But like, what the Niners are doing now is setting up for the future. And if their future is Trey Lance, then go get Julio Jones for Trey Lance. I just don't think, hashtag ride me 10 is the future of the 49ers. And I don't think it matters, what the 49ers do with Jimmy Garoppolo for the, 5 or 6 games he's probably going to play this season.
I think if Jimmy Garoppolo starts week 1, I think if he starts week 1, he's the starter all season. But that's just me.
He's going to get hurt, dude. Come on.
Stop. We're not going there with him.
We know it's coming. That. Come on, we know it's coming.
We're not doing that. We're not doing that.
Fine.
We're saying in a injuries turned off world, I think the only way I don't think you bench Jimmy based on performance, because I think they'll win. I think they will win. I think they will win quite a few games, and whether Kyle Shanahan will be content with just winning or be really upset at the quarterback position, I think that's going to be, up for discussion, or, show me data, and we're going to have to see that in the future. But as it sits right now on June 3rd, I don't think Jimmy would get benched based on performance.
The discussion we are going to have as the season gets closer is going to be the one we see with our own eyes, whether we're at training camp or whether we're watching preseason games. The conversation has to be letting this thing play out. And I'm right now with we made that bet, a month ago now. Right now, I probably think Jimmy Garoppolo starts the season. I think that he is going to start the season right now. But if we get to preseason and Trey Lance is that much better in those preseason games, like, I'm going to be loud and vocal on Twitter. I don't care how much of 49ers Twitter hates me.
Okay, I don't want to get into this whole Jimmy versus Trey thing.
The problem is everything comes down to that, no matter what. Like, everything we talk about this football team.
Let's talk about Trey. Let's talk about Trey then. Are you buying? We don't have to play freaking Batman versus Superman every time. Let's focus on Superman. Superman is Trey Lance, because he's going to save this franchise. Are you buying stock in the Trey Lance hype right now?
What Grant Cohn posted yesterday was probably the most glowing thing I've heard about Trey Lance since this whole thing started. And it's that, because Grant Cohn is very hard on people, and I think part of it is just stick, and then part of it is like, maybe he actually is hard on people in general when it comes to just, his grading and how he looks at stuff. Grant Cohn specifically said that Trey Lance is the guy. What he was doing was just mind-blowing. When the ball leaves his hand, it blows your mind. And, that's the kind of stuff people were saying about Mahomes in training camp. And yeah, Mahomes threw a lot of interceptions in training camp. But Mahomes also was running out of an air raid offense. Trey Lance is not. Trey Lance is coming out of a pretty close to the NFL, the real thing, type offense. And so if Trey Lance has this, Patrick Mahomes ability that people seem to believe that he has, and he can run this offense, like we've, Kyle wants it, then yeah, I think that they've got something that I think is the potential to, I'm not going to get ahead of myself, but I think that the 5-year window is going to be successful. And the 5-year window being successful means you go to the Super Bowl and you win one. And if you go to 3 and you win one of them, I don't care. Just win one, because it's getting really old going to them and losing. That's getting real old, because, every time this team's good, they go to the Super Bowl, they lose, and then they go back to being crap again. So, I mean, if they don't make the playoffs this year, then we might have a problem. But if they don't win the Super Bowl in 5 years, then we have a serious problem, because then we have to really think about, do you give Kyle this 5 more years? Do you give John 5 more years to draft? What do you do? And I mean, the success is going to be gauged in what Trey does in the next 5 years, not what Trey does this year.
And I think you say there's going to be a problem in the next 5 years if they don't do it, because of how hefty quarterback contracts are. So that's why you're signaling 5 years, because that's essentially when Trey Lance is going to break the bank and make this all-time quarterback contract, which I hope he does, because if he does, he's playing at a Watson level, he's playing at a Prescott level, he's playing at a Mahomes level. So I want Trey Lance to get every penny in the damn world, because that means he is a damn good quarterback if that happens.
Absolutely.
It's been just the Buccaneers to win a Super Bowl and having to pay a quarterback a ton of money. And a main reason behind that was because the Chiefs just basically flat out stunk the Super Bowl. They had no offensive line. They couldn't protect Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is freaking parallel to the ground, throwing darts, and yet it's bouncing off their own face mask. Yep. So, that was just one of those perfect scenarios. Green Bay can't win a home playoff game in Lambeau Field, and Saints choke again. I think that's more of an anomaly, or, more than just the Buccaneers being better than all those teams. And the difference of that doing so is it's Tom freaking Brady.
Yeah.
The guy had 6 rings before that. It's not like freaking, say, Jared Goff went out there and did that. It's not, like any other quarterback went out there and did that. It was the greatest quarterback of all time. So we can't even hold that comparison in. And the other one to make above 12% of the team salary cap is Steve Young, another Hall of Famer, another MVP. So 2 Hall of Fame MVP quarterbacks are the only 2 to do it. So that's why you say it gets really tricky after 5 years if they don't accomplish it. Patrick Mahomes, rookie deal. Before that, Tom Brady wasn't making that much as a New England Patriot. Nick Foles wasn't making squat with the Philadelphia Eagles. Eli Manning wasn't above 12% when he won. It's pretty crazy.
Like, we all know Patrick Mahomes is going back to the Super Bowl at some point. Like, that's not a question.
Well, besides the point, like, the Chiefs are loaded, but
we are Leo, we are loaded. Like, come on. Like, the 49ers are loaded. The 49ers have one of the best head coaches in the league, just like the Chiefs do. Like, if the Niners didn't get injured last year, and this includes the quarterback, then they were probably right back in the same exact spot they were in 2019, even, despite the fact that the roster was a little worse, because the Bucs weren't that good. Like, I understand Brady is the Brady, but they weren't that good. Like, it's just, they weren't. Like, they were a 10-6 football team that went to the Super Bowl, and the Chiefs just muffed it, just were terrible. Mahomes was the only player that came to play that day. And so they're in the same exact position, even, I hate to say this, but probably even with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback, if he just stays healthy for a whole season. So then why are we thinking that, okay, well, if the Niners upgrade the quarterback position, why are they not back in the Super Bowl in the next 5 years? That's the thing about the 5-year window that I can't understand people's argument with. If it's like the expectation should be Super Bowl championship in 5 years. Like that should be the expectation. And the expectation this season, no matter who quarterback is, as long as the injuries aren't as bad as they were last year, are, playoffs at least, right? Like even with Jimmy Garoppolo, they better make the playoffs. And then that's the thing is if they, we had that conversation earlier, if they don't see what they want to see and Trey does come in, then I expect that we should see with Trey pretty early. And I mean, if he has like a Tua Tagovailoa type of rookie season, I think 49er fans are going to be worried for a whole offseason, and I think it's going to get pretty toxic. So there's a lot of factors into this whole thing for this season.
Okay. Buying stock in Trey Lance's early hype. I'm going to do it. I'm buying stock in it because I know Grant on a personal level as well as the social media and YouTube Grant that everyone else sees. He's a guy that likes to be right. And at one point in time, he called Trey Lance a running back. And Grant doesn't go out there and just say anybody's good. Yeah. Anybody and everybody. Mm-hmm. He goes out there and looks for flaws because he finds it interesting. He basically goes out there and does detective work behind the reporting to where he's like, okay, where is this guy bad? And yet he's out there and he's stunned with the quarterback Trey Lance is. Instead of him trying to flip the script to say, oh, Trey Lance did this wrong, and trying to make himself look right. Mm-hmm. Instead, he's just conceding to Trey Lance being a hell of a player. And if Grant is doing that himself, that's where I'm going to buy stock in it. I'm going to, because first off, I'm not only putting my chips on Grant. That's everybody out there saying that. But also, let's keep in mind, they don't have pads on. This isn't, fully 11 on 11 per se, where defensive linemen are rushing. Obviously, they're not going to sack Trey Lance, but the natural talent stands out more with these OTAs. They stand out more because you're out there with a shirt and a t-shirt and you're just wearing your shell, as we call them, which is your helmet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to buy stock on it. Like, he looks good now, and that's what I want him to look good in, is freaking shorts and a t-shirt. I want him to look like a stud like that. Between the years, that comes with a full padded practice because things get a little more physical.
I have a question for you, actually.
What's up?
Do you buy any stock in the idea that right now it seems like Trey Lance is throwing the ball more than Jimmy Garoppolo is in these practices? So Grant specifically said yesterday, Trey Lance had 10 throws, Jimmy only had 7. Sudfeld had none, Rosen had 1. And so that says to me, and this could say something different to you, and this is not a Jimmy Trey Lance argument here. This is saying that Trey Lance is probably, I imagine he's probably playing with the 1s and the 2s, and that's why he's seeing more throws.
I would say an attempt count is much ado about nothing in a single practice, because I can guarantee you, if Kyle Shanahan was asked, like, hey, why did Jimmy only throw 7 and why did Trey Lance throw 10? When you're a coach calling those plays, you don't even realize it. You're like, oh, I didn't even notice. It just happened.
Yeah.
So sometimes those things happen organically. So to single out a single practice or say a week's worth of practice and put those numbers in together, it just, stuff happens organically to where it's, it's much ado about nothing to me. Does Kyle Shanahan want Trey Lance to start? I would think so.
Yeah, he does.
I don't think so. I think so. Excuse me. I think he would. Why wouldn't you? Of course you do. But he's going to make the best decision for the team and the best decision for Trey Lance in that process, because his future is in Trey Lance. It's not in Garoppolo. But Trey Lance, like, right, what they do right now means nothing in far as who starts week 1.
Yeah.
It's going to come down to what they look like in the shared practice in Los Angeles. How does Trey Lance look like? They're right now, like, even when they put on their pads, they're gonna know half the time the defensive play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, like, like, it's gonna matter when they have the preseason game. It's gonna matter when they have the joint practice with the Chargers.
Yeah,
Like that's when it matters.
Yeah.
Shorts and a t-shirt don't really matter. It just gets you excited, and I saw that video out there of, like, Shanahan smiling at Trey Lance. I think it was Javi who said it. It's like, I don't think Shanahan smiling about Trey Lance throwing that ball. It looked like he was having a friendly conversation with the other coach there on the side. And it just so happened to have the camera screen towards Kyle Shanahan. I think we're all just excited.
Yeah.
Like, I'm excited to have Trey Lance, but I am prepared for Jimmy Garoppolo to start, which he's a starting quarterback in this league. And when he does start, they do win games because this is a top 10, top 5 roster in the NFL. So no matter who's starting behind center, they're both going to win a lot of games this season. And that's at a minimum 10. Minimum 10.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I think that the reason that the Niners actually allow the media to come in a lot less than, I think it's like only 1 or 2 days out of like the 4 or 5 days they do OTAs a week, is because they don't want that kind of stuff going around where, like, Kyle's like smiling and they take it out of context or whatever. I think that, that is totally something being taken out of context, because I don't think that's what the factor is there. Like, yes, I think he wants Trey to start. And I think that there has been some things in those videos in shirts and, shorts and a helmet that are with Trey Lance. You're just like, wow. Like,
that ball jumps. That ball jumps off his hand.
The ball jumps off his hand. Yes, his release is a little longer than Garoppolo's, but I think that that's just a rookie, and I think he'll change.
That's fine. Does the ball get there quicker? The ball get there quicker?
It's that, and then I just think what's between his ears. Everything you hear about him, he's so smart. He understands the playbook this well already, and I think that I wouldn't be surprised if we get to preseason and he has a pretty good understanding of the playbook. The biggest factor for fans and for people who would, like, are big Niner fans who listen to shows like this, listen to our show, like that kind of stuff. What you see in preseason should be your own judgment. What you see in preseason from both quarterbacks should be how you judge however you feel about Trey being the 3rd overall pick, however you feel about Jimmy Garoppolo, losing the Super Bowl. Your decision making shouldn't be swayed by anything other than what you see when they play those 3 preseason games. And that should be what decides who is the starter week 1, no matter how good Trey looks in practice.
Mm-hmm.
Or doesn't look in practice, And so I don't put any account into OTAs. It's cool to see Grant, talk up Trey Lance like he is. But I'm not doing anything until we're seeing preseason games and, that stuff. Even in training camp, I probably, even if you go to training camp and you watch training camp live, like, I'm not taking that into account. It's going to be the 3 preseason games that will decide it should be for not just me and you, but for those coaches, for everything that we're involving this football team, who the starter is. It should be reliant on those 3 games. And Jimmy Garoppolo probably knows that. No matter what he's doing in these practices, it's not going to change anything unless he goes into that, those 3 preseason games and lights it up.
Yeah. Well, hey, is there anything else you want to discuss here before we head out? Feels like a really fast show, but we've been on here for 40 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, no, not really. It's just it's pretty dead right now, and I think the Julio Jones thing is going to go on for a long time. I think that this is the way it sounded like over the weekend, it sounded like it was going to be a quick conclusion. And then I think that the Falcons didn't get the offers they thought they were going to get. And so this thing's going to go until they get something or they settle for something. And I think they thought they were going to get a first-round pick for Julio, and not even the Titans have offered that. I think we're probably sitting right now, if I had to guess what the top offer they've been sent is probably a second and a fourth next year. It's probably the number one pick right now is what that's what they've been given. And I think that they are waiting for a first or more. And I think that this Julio Jones saga is going to go on for a little longer. And I think that we're not going to have it's not going to get resolved for a week or two. And I think that, this hyped second free agency we're supposed to have, it's kind of dead so far. Nothing's really interesting is happening. And I still have no idea what's going on with Richard Sherman. And the Tony Jefferson stuff is confusing because he's, doing workouts in Niner shorts. And we heard he's going to be a Niner. So, there's so many things that are probably going on behind the scenes that, even people who have sources don't really know right now. Mm-hmm. And so I think that it's a lot of being patient and, waiting for something interesting to happen and something to talk about. And it sucks. That's my point. It sucks. It's going to be a rough month, I think. June's going to be pretty boring. I don't think anything really interesting is going to happen, but I think in July it'll pick up and, we'll start getting, more videos of them in pads and all that stuff. And they'll have training camp with fans and all that, the fun stuff will happen. But yeah.
Well, fun stuff for the Jersey people out there. Jimmy Ward, officially number 1.
He's happy we didn't get Justin Fields.
Number 1. It's a little different. It's
you hate it. Don't lie, you hate it. You hate it. I know you.
Come on,
you hate it.
Just put me on blast.
Jason Verretta's 2. Jimmy Ward is 1. You hate it. You know you hate it.
And Jaquiski Tart might make a pitch for number 6.
Oh God!
Single digit secondary. K1 needs to switch his number. K1 needs to switch his number. K1 needs to go.
24.
No, he needs to go to number 7 now.
Just
24. A whole single digit secondary. But hey, I'm interested to see, number 1 Jimmy Ward. Does number 1 Jimmy Ward, does he become instantly an all-pro safety?
He already is.
Is he? Well, I'm saying according to Wikipedia, does he become an all-pro safety? Does he become a Pro Bowl safety? Just because of that jersey number now? We'll see. Hey, it's a beautiful number. It was my football number. Fun fact. So,
one thing we need to talk about in the future, by the way, is why. And this is something I don't think we have the details to talk about quite yet. Why are Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson starting no matter what? What is the factor there that they're starting, day one, and
they don't got a Jimmy Garoppolo?
I understand that, but that's still risky. But everyone's argument on Twitter seems to be, well, why are we rushing the rookie? Well, the Jets and the Jaguars are rushing the rookie with.
They don't have the luxury to sit him. Let's save that for another time, though.
I think that's a conversation for next time. I was just thinking about it, and I was just I was talking to some people on Twitter streams or whatever the hell their stupid faces, and that was a conversation that came up, and I honestly don't have the answer to it yet. So I'd like to do a little more research, and then that's an interesting conversation for next week.
Okay, perfect. Sounds great. Hey, I appreciate all of you jumping in the comments. Nick, as always, we'll see you soon.